Hey guys, welcome to GS Blogs. Today I'm going to talk about Spring Security with JWT Token based login. So this is the basically a use case based video. So let's say we have one backend application and we ourselves are managing the complete users database. So all the users will be in our database and our front end would be, or let's say our client would be any Angular application or any a mobile application. So we're gonna expose the REST APIs, but that's not the, let's say it's not the big project. It's a mid-level project, and we'll be managing all the data, all the users' data by ourselves. So we can, we can add the OAuth there by using our in-house authorization server. Spring provides one authorization server, and I'll create one video about that, or maybe I'll write one blog about that. So the agenda here is just to expose one REST endpoint which basically takes the username and password as an input and directly gives you the JWT token. That's it. And that endpoint can be consumed by various application. It could be your Angular app or your mobile application. In this video, I'm not going through the complete flow. I'll just create the backend endpoints and backend services. I won't create the Angular app. I have created another video for Spring Security and Angular JS integration. I'll add that link into the description. So let's begin the coding part. For that, I have this project. Let's start defining the dependencies. Implementation web. I need web. I need GPA, and I need security. So I'll comment this out for now. Now we need one more dependency for MySQL here. I'll be using this MySQL to store username and user information basically. The first step will create a few entities. User and role. Okay, these are two entities, and I'll create repositories for these. User repository. Okay, let's define role first. Okay, I think we need to build this one. Let's wait. Okay, meanwhile it's building, let's define the other repository we need. Role repository. Okay, we also need one more class. Yep, we need one initializer class which will basically initialize the data or initialize the users for us. App initializer. Okay, this will be a Spring Bean which basically will run at the application startup. If you don't know how to create this type of bean, this how to run code at the application startup, I have written a blog for that. I'll add the link in the description as well. Application runner. Okay, not getting autocomplete because the project is not completely built yet. Okay, meanwhile it's building. We'll create few more classes which we might need. So we also need the main part is security config, which will be using later. Security config, all the security configuration will go here, and one endpoint, one controller endpoint, which so rest, say home controller. Okay, this will be my controller. This I'll secure this endpoint by using a security config. So this will be a REST controller, and let's add request mapping. Let's call this one v1 and home. Okay, and let's add a get endpoint with the map of some key value pair. It will return key value pair, so it will become a JSON output. Let's say home. Okay, and simply return collections dot single map hello, or let's say name. As of now I'm using JS blocks. That's it. I think we got all the dependencies. Now start defining the bean or entities. Let's start with entity. So this will be my entity, and this is my table. Okay, it will have ID, private string, role name. Okay, that's it. Let's add getter setter. Now let's configure user. Create this as an entity. Table and use an ID. And for this generated value, I'll be using strategy to auto. Okay, now use email, password, and set of roles. So this will be a many-to-many relationship, because a role can contain a user can contain multiple roles. Similarly, a role can be associated with multiple users. I'll change the fetching strategy to eager, so that every time I fetch the user, it should fetch all the roles. Okay, let's check the role whether yeah, we have created. Okay, now let's move over the repository, role repository. Extends GP repository. So role and ID type is long. Let's define one method called role find by name. Okay, I'll use this one just to find the role by name, by its name. Another one is JP repository. This will be for user, and ID type is long. Similarly, user find by email. Okay, email. That's it. Now this is app initializer. What I'll do, I'll create the mark it as component and implements application runner. So this is the bean. So this will define a bean. I'm defining this as a bean, and every implementation of this application runner, every bean which implements this one, will be run at the application startup time. Private final user repository. Need this one. Final role repository. Okay. I need I think one more uh, bean, which is password encoder. What I'll do, I'll just enable this one and just run this Gradle build. Meanwhile it's building, let's add logic here. So let's say role equals to, so this is my seed data, role repository find by. I just I have created one method find by name. So I'll create role admin. I'll find out this role. If role is null, then initialize one. Just new role dot set name is role admin. Okay, and save it. Role equals to role repository dot save. Okay, now in similar way, just find out for user equals to user repository dot find by email. Let's say abc or is blogs at gmail.com. Okay, if user is empty, then initialize one user with the email jsblogs at gmail.com. Password, I'll define the password, but I'll encrypt that later. If the, yep, it's already built. Let's say I need to define one more bean, but I'm injecting this first. Password encoder. This encoder will encode the password for me. Password encoder, and Spring Security uses this encoder just to encode the passwords. It doesn't, so it's good practice to keep your password encrypted in the database as well. So this will encrypt the password. It will choose one algorithm and it will encrypt the password according to that. Okay, I have defined this one. Now user dot set role collections dot singleton role, and this save this one as well, user repository dot save. Okay, so as far we have initialize users and role. Okay, we need to define database as well, application dot YAML. Let's check whether my database is running or not. Well, I'll define data source here, spring data source URL vc mysql localhost. I have one database here with JS blogs, and create database if not exists. Username will be, okay, I have one Docker image. I think this should be running. No, it's not. Docker start mysql 8. Okay, I have set the password as root. Okay, and database name, it's done. Okay, and use update. Okay, I think we are good. Okay, I need to create one runner class. JWT token runner. I'll mark this one as Spring Boot application. Let's define main method spring application dot run. I think we're good. Okay, now let's review the configurations. We have here update and create database if not exist. Okay, check the user, case study, server, role, done, app initializer. Oops, I think we need to define one password encoder. Okay, define configuration above web security. Okay, define the now password encoder. Encoder factories use fast create delegating encoder. Okay, that's it. I hope we are good now. Let's start the app. Hopefully this should work. We have not configured any security yet, so we are yet to define that. So meanwhile, let's start building. I'll create one package which we'll be using later on. Security and token store. We need one token store. We need one token filter. Authentication filter. We need one token filter or token extraction filter, or just call it token filter. Okay, as you can see, if we have not configured any security yet, so Spring Security has created one default password it's generated for us, but we are not going to use that. Let's check whether users are created or not. Okay, user. Okay, we have user. Oh, role is not. Okay, role is there. Start from users, user roles. Okay, user roles are mapped. Okay, now app is running. Let's configure the security. Before that, uh, let's define the authentication filter. So this filter will work with the username and password authentication filter, and so this will take care of the login endpoint. So as you can see, so there's a twist here. Username and password authentication filter works as is, so we are going to use that filter as it is. The only part we are going to change is just to these two parameters. So this filter extracts the username from the request request parameter, so it expects the form data, but in our case our username and password would be in the JSON object, so it will be in request body. So for that, what we will do, we'll override these two methods. Override methods, attempt authentication, and override methods obtain username and password. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll create one more what we call thread. Okay, so username and password. For that we need to, I'm creating a temporary object here, temporary class user info. This will have username and password, and get a setter for these two. So in the first case, what we'll do, we'll extract the username and password, and to do that we are going to use object mapper from Jackson. So we can inject the bean as well, but I'm creating it, the object mapper here for the demo. Let's define one method, parse username, or let's say extract name password. Okay, and I'm using here one thread local because this filter will be used throughout the application. User info TL, not good in the naming the variable. Okay, now try to parse. It should accept the request here. Mapper dot read value request dot get servlet input stream, sorry, get input stream, and parse this to as user info object. Okay, just use try catch here. Okay, and if it's not null, if info not equals to null, then simply put this into thread loop tl dot set info. Okay, and in both the cases check if request as okay, thread local dot get. So this will be my user info if info not equals to null, then simply returns the info dot get password. Okay, otherwise simply just return null. Similarly for username, here just return username, and we'll call it here. Okay, extract username and password request. We can optimize this because this is calling invoking every time, so we need to invoke this conditionally. We can tune it later. Okay, now public authentication, that should get the attempt authentication will will invoke the super method, and will simply first extract this one and then simply attempt the authentication. Now the other part, we need to define this filter as well in security config. Let's start defining security config. Okay, before that, web security configure adapter, and write a method called configure with HTTP security one. So HTTP dot add filter before. So I'll define one filter here. Wait. Okay. Token authentication filter. JWT is defining this filter as a B. Okay. JWT authentication filter. filter here. Okay, we need to define few of the properties like filter dot set authentication manager. We need to define authentication manager, and we'll use authentication manager bean from the class which is inside the web security. Now add this filter here with the just before username and username password authentication filter. Okay, what he says, okay, we need to throw the exception. Okay, http.cs, I'm disabling this one because we are not going to use form based login, and dot authorize request and matchers, so we will have login endpoint permit all, any request should be authenticated. Okay, and we can define few more properties like in any case, if in case of not if user is not logged in, so just don't redirect the user, just simply return with the 403 or 401 and exception handler handling dot authentication entry point. So we are going to use authentication entry point here. We'll define our customized bean. Okay, comments here. Okay, instead of doing that, we'll simply say response dot get writer dot write, let's say error message user is not authenticated, and let's say response if you want to give back the response type with header, so content type is application JSON. Okay, now let's go ahead and configure this filter as well, just a little bit. Okay, we need to define few beans here, few configuration token application filter. Let's say not here, I'll define it from here. So filter dot set authentication success handler. We need to define success handler and the error handler. Authentication failure handler. So what I'll do, I'll use the method here. So in case of success, just simply return the JWT token. Okay, so I'm writing the function reference here on authentication success. Okay, what this will do, okay, before that we also need to define our JWT token store. Okay, I have written a blog about that, so in which I have specify how you can write your custom JWT token store being. Okay, let's use this blog here. Okay, all right, and we also need one user detail service, so which basically will fetch the user from the database. So I'm giving app user details service. Okay, it will implement user details service and will override one method called load user by user ID. final user repository. Okay, what I'll do, so this is basically, this will be an email. I'll do user repository find by email username. So I'm treating this username is my email, so it should give me the user from the our database. Okay, if user is null, then it should throw the exception user not exist with email username. Okay, otherwise it should return the user details. So I'm using Spring security based user. This is my user. This I'm returning this one as of now. You can define your customize your own in implementation of this class. Okay, it takes the email. I mean, this one takes the few username, password, and authority. So I'll pass you dot get email, get password, and I need to pass authority. So what I'll do, get roles stream map role get name, sorry, get name. Okay, map simple granted authority, and then collect as a set. That's it. This will return the details. Now define the token store. I need this, so I'll explain this, the working functionality of this class. So what we will do, we'll create the generate token from the authentication in this method, and we will generate the authentication object from the JWT token using this method. So I'll be using this username with app user detail service class. So this class will help me to get the user from the database. Okay, so and for these I think I need one more dependency. Nimbus size, I need nimbus limitation. So I need nimbus nimbus okay, I'll use the one with the, I think 761 I have in the class path in the library. 781. Okay, I'll use this one. This will work. Okay, now trigger the build. Now we should see the all the missing classes here. Not here, here. Okay, we don't need to put auth here. We don't need to put these things as well. So what I'll do here, user details store authentication, get principal. So principal is type of user detail. Loaded it? No. Okay, it's right here. Meanwhile, I'll create the JWT claim set, and I'll use the user ID or user email as a subject. Get user name. I have put the email in the username. Once this is built, I'll use these classes to sign the JWT token. Okay, this is done. Okay. This should be enough. Okay, I think I have imported the wrong class. Need the numbers one, not the. Okay, this so what I'm doing here is I'm getting the user detail from the authentication object. I'm getting this username or the email. I'm putting that as a subject. Setting expiry time to 5 hours. This will generate the time unit. Okay. So this generates the time unit to 5 hours, and this signs the key, and that's it. And to read more about these, these number, I have explained these numbers here, so I'll put the link as well. Now from the JWT, what we'll do, we'll verify the JWT using this method. So as of now, I'm only verifying the time, and from the key claim set, what we will do, we'll get the claim set, get subject is my email, and I'll use user detail service load user by username email here. So this will give me user details object. Okay, now I'll simply return the username and password authentication token. I'll pass the details as my principal. So this requires credentials details.get password and details.get authorities. So that's it. So this method will generate the token, and the second one will generate the authentication object from the token. Okay, now let's go back to security config, and in success handler I'll also implement this one. So in case of authentication failure, I'll simply return the error message with the status HTTP status code 401. It's the same here. So error, instead of returning the error as it is, what I'll do, I'll simply use exception.get message here, and I'll simply pass this one. So this is a JSON. I have to keep parsing these things. Now in case of failure, on authentication failure method, in case of success, what I'll do, I'll first import the bean token store. Okay, make it famous, and I'll inject it via constructor JWT token store dot generate token, and I'll pass the authentication object here. It should give me the token. Okay, once I get the token, I'll simply return to the response dot get writer dot write. I'll say access token, and this token. Okay, and I'll pass the content type to. Okay, I hope this works now, if I'm not missing anything. I've got the token store. Oh, that's one more thing. Let's simply first test this one with the JWT token learner, and I'll try to access this endpoint v1 home. So as expected, I should get the unauthorized error. Okay. So I'll simply open this one from the browser first. So instead of redirection, I should get the error, JSON error message. Host v1 home. Okay, I'm getting user is not authenticated. That's fine. Let's try to get the token. I have created the user name with the jsblocks@gmail.com and password is admin. So let's try to log in with post, and request body is name, this one, and password is admin. Okay, I got the token. It's cool. Now try to hit the v1 endpoint. Host JWT v1/home. Okay. Oops. Why we are getting this value even though we have not provided any token? Let's try hit it from here. Strange. Oh, I got the problem. I know. So this it's creating session at the backend. So let's say session management. So we'll change it to stateless. So it was creating session for each request, and because of that, so this request, so it's storing the token in the cookie. I think it's, and when we are hitting the other request, it's also sending the same session cookie. That's why it was giving the value back. Now let's try with this one, with this approach. Okay, it's running now. Got the token here, and oh, that's great. Now we need to pass the token authorization in the authorization header, and we'll use the bearer and this access token. But remember one thing, we have not configured any this token parse and filter which will pass this token, so it should not work. So we'll add this. So remember the filter here, we have created this one for do this same similar job. So I'll implement the extends the once per request filter, and invoke to filter, and I need here one token store. Sorry, JWT token store. Okay, now if we get request dot get header authorization and header if, and if header is not equals to null, and header dot contains bearer. Okay, if this, it means we have token, so we'll do tokens equals to header dot split using space, and if tokens dot length greater than 1, then only we'll get the token. JWT equals to tokens index of 1, and we'll call the token store dot get auth. We'll pass a JWT here, and it should give me the authentication object. We'll add the package here, and if I'm getting the authentication here, then I'll simply use the security context holder dot get context dot set authentication. That's it. And in any case, we'll forward the request to the next filter. Do filter chain request and response. Okay, that's it. And in case of any error, so we'll not do that right now. Okay, at the rate component, we'll use this configurations here. Do filter here, JWT token filter. I'll find JWT token filter and add it in the constructor. JWT token filter, we'll add this one just before our JWT tokens authentication filter. Okay, now restart the application, and this should work as of now, because it will parse the authentication object and it will simply converts that JWT token to authentication object. Let's wait for the app. And started. Run this one. Okay, got the token. Use this token here. Yep, that works. Okay, so that was the tutorial about the Spring Security and JWT token.